everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is Allison Landers, the Chief Experience Officer, Banking and Lending at UBS. UBS employs 110,000 people working worldwide, with 23,000 located in the U.S. Allison joined UBS Bank as Managing Director and CXO in 2022. In her role, she's responsible for the design, delivery, and ongoing management of end-to-end omni-channel client and employee experiences. Allison brings over 25 years of experience in customer experience, digital product management, and marketing. She started her career in the .com space, working for AOL, American Greetings, and Sabre Networks. That's the parent company of Travelocity. Allison is active in both the industry and her community. She lives in New Jersey with her husband and their 3 teenage sons and dog, Daisy. Please enjoy Allison Landers. Allison, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast. We have so much to cover today. You've been in the CX world for so long. Before we get into the meat of our conversation, I know you started in the .com boom. Can you give us a little high level of your career growth and where you got started?
Sure. So I spent the first decade or so of my career in the technology or .com space. My first job was with AOL in the 90s. So if you ever got a free CD in your mailbox, that was my program. And then as our prospects started to move online, we built out the capabilities that everybody considers kind of foundational today. The shopping carts, the ability to buy something online with different types of payment options and email marketing. I mean, all of that stuff was new. So fantastic place to learn. Also worked for American Greetings in their web division, did the startup thing for Travelocity. And 20 years ago, got into financial services kind of by mistake. My startup funding was pooled. My husband was still a student. We were living in Cleveland, Ohio. It was 2005, and I needed a reliable job. I was our income, right? So my choice in Cleveland at that time was I could work for the bank, the insurance company, or the hospital. And my husband was at the hospital, so I didn't want to go there. And I got lucky. I threw a bunch of resumes at websites, totally, haphazardly. And there was an open-minded hiring manager at KeyBank who was willing to talk to somebody and, about the marketing role in for banking that my only experience with banking to that point had been being a consumer of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I stepped into, a marketing role for the national finance businesses, which was everything from mortgages to student loans, luxury yacht loans, and, running a marketing team. I was surprised because everything was very traditional. It was about posters in the branch and things like that, collateral. Nobody was talking about online advertising. And I thought if you're talking about student loans, you need to be on the internet. You need to be right, emailing
Yeah.
folks. You need to have information on your websites. And the department just wasn't thinking about it. And luckily for me, a year or two into my stint at KeyBank, the role of running digital became available. The gentleman who had actually started the digital channels in the 90s, was leaving to go elsewhere, and so they were looking for a new leader. And I raised my hand, and it was a fantastic time because it was like '07, I think, and mobile was a new concept, so got to help lead, the development of text banking and mobile apps and optimized websites and revamp, the online banking experience. So it was great. But that's how I got into financial services, kind of like I said, by mistake. Originally doing everything from marketing, channel management. I also ran contact centers. This is now my fourth bank because I did a stint at TD Bank, Wells Fargo, worked in Prudential. But yes, essentially every role that you could have in designing and delivering experience. So a natural fit for an experience role when those started to become a thing. The first time experience entered my title was in 2015 with Prudential. I think financial services has been building out experience teams and leadership roles for about 10, 15 years. Um, but like I said, when I look back on what might qualify me for this role, all the zigging and zagging across industries or departments, everything in common was, again, designing and delivering experiences that impact the customer.
It's so interesting to me how so many of us start in roles that we can't see the future. We can't
No.
see the end in sight. But you were when you started, you would eventually have a job that didn't exist at the time
Yeah.
when you started. So like, isn't that interesting? Let's talk about customer experience. Let's get a little bit more into the meat of the conversation. What is customer experience? What does it mean to you? And how does that look at UBS?
Yes. So a customer experience, I mean, you want a textbook definition, right? Is all the experiences your customers have with you. And that could mean what it takes to do business with you, what they read about you in the newspaper, right? All of their interactions with contact center, website, your products and services. Um, what does it mean at UBS? So again, this is my fourth bank. The other banks that I've worked for are primarily retail banks first that have wealth management divisions or private bank divisions. In the United States, UBS is primarily and historically a wealth management firm. And, we have a banking division. So when you think about the experience of banking in a wealth management relationship, it's essentially a business to consumer model, meaning, the business to business component is we educate the financial advisors about our products and services that they in turn recommend to their clients. So we obviously do supplement, the messaging that the advisors provide to their clients with marketing, direct to client marketing, and obviously we are building out the experiences that the customers have directly with us. Again, an example, using the website to move money around, right? Whether it's Zelle or mobile deposit capture, transferring funds in or out. So that is different. But when you think about wealth management, the wealth management relationship as the anchor, right? Most of the interactions are delivered through the financial advisors and their teams. And our clients are very used to a highly personalized, high touch, white glove service, right? You've got clients who are trained to go to their FAs for everything, even the simplest of tasks, because, they love Bob and he just takes care of everything for them. So that's actually how we got into banking or started our banking division about 20 years ago because our clients had broader needs than just their wealth management, right? And since they love and trust their advisors and they want to do more business with Bob, if they're buying a new house or a new piece of artwork, they go to Bob. Hey Bob, can you get me a mortgage? And we didn't offer mortgages. So, then your advisor has to recommend a competitor for a product that we don't have. And that's a risk. Anytime you send your client elsewhere to get a product or service, that other financial services company or bank where you're sending your client would love to steal the wealth business. So over time, you get enough requests for mortgages, and this is just one example, then we got to build out a mortgage capability, right? So that we can play defense in that space. And that is essentially how we added things like the credit card offering or various lending that makes use of your investment portfolio or high yield savings. But when you get into banking, the expectations for banking are very different than wealth management. It's 24/7, it's omni channel. So we really work hard to strike that right balance between the advised kind of high touch relationship and these supporting always on channels, contact center, web, and mobile.
One of the things that I've talked to many CXOs about is balancing the pursuit of keeping clients happy and then focusing on generating new clients. Would you say that you have the luxury of focusing on a lot on the customer experience of the current client, or is growth and sales part of your scope?
I would say we're evenly split, right? We obviously have to care for the clients we have today. That's the bread and butter of the business. And the client base we have today is unique, right? They skew wealthier, they skew older, they skew less digitally savvy. Now, some of that maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe they're savvy in their other, relationships, but because they love Bob and Bob does everything for them, they let him, take care of things that they would otherwise normally do themselves on an app. So we can't disrupt that model, right? And we very much focus not only on making things easier for the client, but making things easier for the employees who are, enabling these experiences for the client. Because if there's friction, if it's hard for our advisors and their teams to do business with us, right, then it shows up to the client. But we have to build out these digital capabilities for the clients that we have today and the clients that we want in the future, right? We have to build out the banking products and services that we don't have. People are not going to bring their everyday banking relationship to us, or all of their financial services relationships to us, if we don't have a basic checking account, right? Or if you can't do what you want to do online, or over the phone. So we have to run both in parallel. The way that I like to talk about it is, our relationship might be financial advisor led, right, as far as account opening or servicing, but it's fully supported by fully enabled 24/7 contact center and digital channels. And it's then just figuring out which clients and situations make sense for those channels versus the advised. And we have to, I mean, our capabilities have to be as good as what our clients would get with the national banks, right? That's the expectation. That's the bar that's been set. And your advisors are not going to recommend that folks move, things over to us if we're not as good. But you think about the clients of the future, which may very well be the children and grandchildren of our clients today. And they're not going to come over if everything is a phone call to a live person or a paper form, right? It's just a different way of interacting.
Absolutely. Speaking of paying attention to trends and just being able to influence how things get done at UBS, I think that's a big part of every CXO's role to help influence decisions, to remind everyone about the customer, to represent the customer in the business, to make customer focused decisions. How do
Yes.
you wield your influence to ensure that the customer really is the heart of what you're doing at UBS and everyone remembers that?
Yeah. So it's a best practice that I've used at multiple firms, and it works within and across industries. You have to be making data driven decisions, especially in a world where resources are finite, right? You have to make sure that you're working on what matters most to your clients, or your employees. So we take insights from a variety of channels. Like many other CX teams, we have a robust voice of the client, voice of the employee feedback program where we literally take dozens of sources of feedback, everything from your surveys or your complaints, your app store reviews, your call reasons, right? And you throw them into a pot and you stir them up and you see, what are the most common pieces of feedback. Right. And we have research, proprietary research that we do with our advisors, our employees, our clients. We subscribe to all the third party research that many of our competitors do. All of those help us identify our opportunities, right? And create our priority list. To again make sure that we are deploying the finite resources we have against what matters most. And then there are other tips, tricks, and tools in the toolbox, right? Like journey mapping, to make sure that when we are designing the fix for the problem that's at the top of our list, we're doing so in the best way possible, right? And we do have design processes I'd be happy to talk about, or experienced tenants. Again, just making sure that what we are fixing things the right way, because you can fix the right problem the wrong way and not get any of the benefit that your client or your company are looking for.
So I love meeting with people that work in financial services because it's such a quickly changing industry. There's so
Yeah.
much going on. There's so much coming at you all the time that you really have to be constantly on the forefront of what's evolving, what's changing. What's changing in what financial clients expect in the future, and how is UBS meeting that client in the future?
Yeah. So again, I talked about getting into financial services 20 years ago, and it was a different world, right? A different world for all of us and for a lot of reasons. But I would say at that time, people had a pretty rotten feeling about financial services. They had super low expectations for their bank. If I recall correctly, we were ranked like right next to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles as far as, the experiences or companies that people dreaded to have to deal with. They just expected it to be painful to deal with their bank. That's no longer the case, right? First of all, the you have leaders in the industry that have adapted best practices, and everybody's kind of forced to play catch up. But the way people work today, right? They're not comparing you against another bank. They likely only have one bank relationship, right? They're comparing you to any other experience they're having with any other brand in any other channel, right? And so they're thinking that the way they interact with you is the way they interact with Amazon. And so if you do not, when you design, your experiences, kind of meet them where they are, right, then it's not going to be good enough. So the bar has certainly been raised. It's being set by the experienced leaders, right, instead of leaders in our direct industry, and that's what's expected of us, to get on board. Um, and we talked a lot about the financial advisor, and having people in the mix is both good and bad, because people, especially people you have a wonderful relationship with, right, who know you very well, they can cover up for bad experiences behind the scenes, right? They can cover up for a paper process or a computer system that is too slow. But that's not scalable and that's not sustainable, right? So you have to put the technology in place, like I said, to make things easier for our employees to deliver those experiences, but for clients to handle them themselves at all. And then again, getting back to the concept that we are in a B2B2C type of environment, you know, the advisors are not going to risk that client relationship that they worked hard to earn, right, and decades to build, on sending their client through something that they are worried will not go well, right? So we must, for example, make sure that getting a mortgage is an easy process, or moving your money around is an easy process, or dealing with a credit card fraud is an easy process, because otherwise it's a risk to the relationship and they won't take it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that thinking about each client and what they want and then using technology to meet them where they are, it's always been important and it's going to continue to be important
Yeah.
as we continue down this path of technology evolution in the information age. How is banking different for wealth management clients? You've talked a little bit about it, but can you expand on that?
Yeah, again, we talked about banking as part of a broader wealth management relationship being different. But when it comes to everyday banking, I think the expectations are the same, right? It's always available, always up, multiple channels of choice. So um, our clients expect the same capabilities that the large national banks have, all the channels to work and be connected, and when things for whatever reason don't work, they expect the people up to and including the financial advisor Bob to fix it for them, They have a really low tolerance for disruption. And as I mentioned a second ago, a significant relationship is at risk. So we have to get it right.
Absolutely. It's interesting to think about all your different clients. And when it comes to money, it's so personal for people and it's so rare. It's hard to get to a person. Even at a lot of major banks, you get to a person, you reach the wrong person. So you need to repeat yourself. So banking still has a long way to go, but it's
Yeah.
exciting to see that more big banks have a chief customer officer. Before we get into the end of our conversation, would you actually be able to paint the picture for our audience of your team and how your team breaks down?
Sure. Yes. And again, this is officially the third head of CX role that I've been in. Um, the way I like to explain it is there are capabilities that seem to always be involved in a CX team or role. And then there are the sometimes things, depending on how your company is structured or what industry you're in, that may or may not be included in the mix. So, I'll talk about the things that I have that are kind of universal on my team, and then I'll talk about the things that I have responsibility for here that I may or may not have had elsewhere. I think that's a good way to think about it. So we talked about being insights driven, and that's certainly very important. So I do have a couple of different teams that focus on insights. I do have a voice of the client, voice of the employee feedback team. Again, their job is to aggregate the feedback that comes from the variety of sources and to analyze it, right? So that we understand what matters most. And I have a traditional market research firm, right? And that's doing real time research with our advisors, our team members, our clients, to get their feedback on anything from the marketing communications to potential products to UX design of an experience. And we've stood up panels, right? Representative panels, so that at the the snap of a finger, if we need to gather feedback with folks that are our clients or a representative sample of advisors, we can get that feedback real time. So that's kind of the insights area. When we shift into experience design, journey management, and again, this is what I consider to be a standard capability in a CX team, is something we care about. We are responsible for the process of journey management or journey mapping, helping our product partners, our channel partners, either get on paper how things work today from the client's perspective. Who are the people, the systems, the communications that folks are interacting with to get things done, and what do we have to do internally to make those things happen. Also helping design totally net new experiences, right? We're launching a new checking account. How would people expect that to work across the different channels? So that's journey management. The areas that I have that are might be considered unique. I have the whole messaging team for the bank, and that is both internal and external messaging. Again, we've got a 6,000 financial advisors, right, and their support teams. So we do a lot of messaging to them, whether it's about service enhancements or service announcements or marketing materials. And same thing, we go direct to client with all of those same types of communications. But what are the value propositions for the bank overall, or specific products and services? And I have the service team. We're designing what is the optimal service model. What should we have the financial advisors and their teams being able to do versus a centralized call center? What should be available self-service? And for each of our products, again, as a banking client, whether I have one product with you or 10 clients with you, I expect I call one number and you can help me with everything, or I go to one website and can figure out things to do. So that's my team in a nutshell. I also have some other responsibilities kind of on the reputational risk side of the house. In other places, I've had direct ownership of digital platforms, UX teams. Those can sometimes be in, sometimes be out. But that's my team in a nutshell.
Well, Allison, I'm so glad that we connected and we've had the chance to chat and we've had you at CXO house meetings that I'm hosting for CXOs. Let's get to know you a little bit more, even though I've had
Okay.
the pleasure of getting to know
Yeah.
you. Let my audience get to know you with some rapid fire before we head out for the weekend. First question, are you ready? Firstly, that's the
I'm
first
ready.
question.
Let's go.
Okay, Allison. What's the most important part of your morning routine?
Um, I would like to say exercising, but it's harder to do now that we're spending more time back in an office. So I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, regardless of if I'm hopping in the car and heading to work or hopping on my Peloton in the basement and getting my mind cleared before the day starts.
What TV show are you currently streaming?
Oh my goodness. I will tell you, I just finished the Monica Lewinsky, documentary series on Hulu, which maybe that's a dirty little secret, but I lived in Washington, D.C. when all of that was going down, and it was kind of crazy to play back the story and find out details that I either didn't know or don't remember from that time. So I'm watching that, and then the new show Stick, which is supposedly a golf version of Ted Lasso on Apple TV with my husband. We all play golf in this house, so that's been a fun one.
I love that. All right. What is your favorite leadership book or resource?
Oh goodness, I'm going to talk about one that popped up last week because I had a cool opportunity. So, I like to read books about experience. I like to read books about experience in other industries, right? And best practices. So, I always recommend the Be Our Guest Disney book. I always recommend books about the Cleveland Clinic. There's a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which is about a New York restaurant and how they tried to create the most amazing experience and the most amazing food to win Michelin stars. And I actually got to dine in that restaurant last week and talk to a bunch of executives from nonprofits about experience, client experience, donor experience. So that's probably the book I'd recommend today because it's top of mind.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've read that book and I've had him on this podcast actually,
Very
Will
cool. Well, now
Guidara.
you're going to have to
So,
introduce me. I have a signed version of his book, and I had his granola that they send you home with after you have dinner in the fancy restaurant. But
oh,
it was fun.
fun fact that I learned his wife is Christina Tossi, who started Milk Bar, which
Yes,
is, I
yes,
did not know.
amazing. She's
Until
amazing, and I've watched is it Chef's Table or something?
Chef.
There's a documentary on that I was able to watch about her.
Yes, and he was even featured on the TV show, which he helped, I think, write some of the script on. Is it Chef? It's not called Chef. Oh
Okay,
no, gonna have to put this in the show notes on Hulu, I believe. Oh, The
okay.
Bear. It's called The Bear.
The
Good. We don't have
Bear,
to.
yes.
The
I have
Bear.
not watched that, but I've heard good
That's a
things.
great. You're gonna love that. You've got to watch it. All right. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness. I have three teenage kids, three teenage boys, one out of the house, one soon to be out of the house, and one who wishes he was out of the house. So anytime that I can get them to spend time with me, talk with me is pretty cool. Lately, that's been on the golf course or anytime mom needs to give them a ride places. Um, but like I said, it's summer here at the Jersey Shore, so maybe we'll sneak in some beach time.
Nice. Love that. What is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
I like to go on a walk, hop on my Peloton, right? Get moving.
Yeah.
It helps me clear my mind. I sleep better at night. I'm nicer. So I definitely, I'm appreciative that now the days are longer, and even after being in the office and with a commute, I can come home and there's daylight to take my dog on a walk and just get outside and keep moving.
Love that. If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh goodness. Well, I guess on the topic, I should meet Will Guidara and have lunch.
Right?
Right? In his restaurant because it's really good. Well, I know he's no longer affiliated, but um again, top of mind. So introduce me to him. Let's do lunch.
Sure. Happy to. Um, what's your favorite type of vacation?
I will say again, living at the Jersey Shore in the summer, it's probably a staycation. We're so busy, we never really get to enjoy the beach that's 3 miles down the road. And every time we go somewhere else in the summer, we said, why didn't we just stay home? So no plans to travel this summer, just hoping to get some time on the beach.
And if you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
My outlook and one quick motto. Well, I always say, don't ask me to do something you don't want done, right? I'm the person that gets the impossible assignments that other people have tried and failed, because I'll take a big monster of a project and break it into, 10 little pieces or 100 little pieces, and kind of relentless pursuit of getting it done. And if I can't go around it or above it, I'll go under it. So yeah, I think that's probably it, right? Don't ask me to do something you don't want done.
I love that. Well, this has been so fun. I hope you'll come back and do the Modern Customer podcast again. So thank you for being here, Allison.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
And all of you have been tuning in to the Modern Customer podcast. Until next time. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like or subscribe and follow my social content on other platforms where I post content daily, including X, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and more.